All right, so this lesson is over conditional statements, and we're also going to be talking about converse statements as well. Okay, so we have if-then statements are called conditional statements, or we can call them conditionals. The portion of the sentence following if is called our hypothesis, and we use the letter P to represent that original hypothesis. And the part immediately following then is called the conclusion. We're going to use the letter Q to represent that. A conditional statement that is true means that something that satisfies the hypothesis will automatically satisfy the conclusion. Okay, so our example for that is if a person lives in Texas, then they live in the United States. And we also have a Venn diagram kind of illustrating that for us. When you interchange the hypothesis and the conclusion, you get a conditional that is called the converse. Okay, and so this is our notation for that. Noticing how these two are switching places. Okay, so if it's got the P first, then the Q, that is the conditional statement they are referring to. But when the Q is first and P is second, that is the converse. They have switched places. Okay, just noting that if it is an if-then statement, you do not switch the if and the then. They should stay put. Okay, so the example here is if you live in the United States, then you live in Texas. Once again, I want to emphasize the if and the then stayed put. This is not a true statement because a person can live in the United States but live in Florida. Okay, remember it takes only one false example, which we refer to as our counterexample, to show that the conditional is false. The counterexample must satisfy the hypothesis but fail the conclusion. Okay, remember this should just be an example. We should not be writing out sentences for that. Okay, so some conditionals have a converse that is true. So they gave us an example here for us to see that. The conditional states if a number is even, then it is divisible by 2. The converse is if a number is divisible by 2, then it is even. Both the conditional and the converse are true, and we are going to call that the biconditional. Okay, so both conditional and converse are true. And we're actually going to discuss this later on in a few lessons, so we'll come back to that. All right, the next thing we have is writing conditionals. Okay, sometimes a conditional statement is written without using the if and the then. And an example here is perpendicular lines intersect. Okay, we can always rewrite this to be an if-then form. And for this example, it'd be rewritten as if lines are perpendicular, then they intersect. Okay, there are other keywords that may be used instead of our if, okay, such as when, provided that, and since. Okay, in our next lesson, the next notes day that you have, we're actually going to give out some more words or terms that we'll use in place of that if and that then that you'll want to know. All right, so down below we've got some practice problems. So for the first two, these conditions, we want to determine are they true or false, and if they're false, we need to give that counterexample. Okay, these are probably going to be a little familiar, but just going back over them. So for number 1, we have if you are in geometry, then you are a freshman. Okay? If you remember, we said that that is a false statement. And my counterexample could be maybe it's a sophomore, a junior, or even a senior, or even 8th grader. Okay. Number 2, if two angles have the same measure, then they are right angles. Okay, so if you remember, same measure, they're equal. And right angles we know are 90 degrees. Okay, so we want to think about, are all angles that are equal to each other always going to be 90? So this is going to be false. Okay, maybe instead of right angles, we can say they're both equal to 36 degrees. Okay, just kind of giving another angle that's not a right angle, where they would be the same. All right, moving into our next section, we have our directions here. Write each conditional statement in if-then form. Okay, so number 1, we have all chimpanzees love bananas. So I'm just going to start off with the first part of that sentence. So we've got if it's a chimpanzee, okay, then mentioning the other topic that's talked about, then they love bananas. Okay, number 2, you may watch TV when you finish your homework. Okay, if you actually remember right up here, if we go back up here to those keywords we saw earlier, it said instead of if, we might see the word when, okay, which we actually do see right here in that sentence. Okay, so that's going to be that key indicator that that's our if. So we're going to start off with if you finish your homework. Then you may watch TV. Okay, so remember, we want to make sure that we know those key words or terms instead of our if and our thens, because they might be trying to trick you up. So moving on to our last section, we've got directions tell us rewrite the following statement in if-then form. We're going to write the converse, and then we're going to go ahead and draw a Venn diagram as well. Okay, so before we kind of do that, we're going to start with just identifying what is my P, what is my Q. Remember, P stands for the hypothesis, and Q is for my conclusion. Okay, so all elephants are mammals. My hypothesis here is going to be the elephants. And my conclusion is the mammals. Okay, so now that we have that identified, we can easily write this in if-then form, and we can state if it's an elephant, okay, then it is a mammal. Okay, and second to last part is going to be writing that converse. Remember, converse, we are going to switch it. So it should be that Q, then our P. So we've got if it's a mammal, then it's an elephant. Okay, and then now the last part of our instructions told us that they want us to draw a Venn diagram. Okay, so drawing our Venn diagram, I'm going to start with my hypothesis here. So my elephants. And then we're actually going to draw a bigger circle around that, and that's where my mammals is going to go. Okay, just because we know that all elephants are going to be considered mammals, so everything from that elephant circle should be inside of our mammal circle. All right, so that is it for our conditional and converse notes. Hopefully this was helpful. I'll see you next time.